Hi, I just wanted to take a minute to apologize for the system downtime that we experienced in April. We did have a necessary system update that we had scheduled beginning on the evening of Friday, April 21st, and it unfortunately did not go as planned and caused some additional unexpected issues. So we had to roll that back. We know that your time is precious and we would not um, have pushed those updates if they were not necessary. And so I just wanted to let you know that we are very sorry for the downtime. We understand that that caused some additional stress, and we have extended the data collection window to allow additional time for data entry, and we'll go over all of those dates at the end. And we are hopeful we'll be able to take care of all of the necessary system updates at the end of June when schools are out, so that we will not have disruptions when we start back up in the fall.
This webinar is dedicated to the technical procedures that data managers will perform during the close down process. If you should have questions about policy or practice, we're asking that you would submit those directly to elahelp@education.ohio.gov. And we're going to talk about the close down steps and give you some important information that you need to have specific to that. As you know, we have modified the timeline a little bit. So as we said earlier, the assessment data must be entered by May 22nd by 11:59 p.m. on that day. So we want to make sure that you get all of your information in and entered by that time. Again, we're wanting you to ensure that you reach out to your teachers, that you're speaking with them and making sure that they're getting those data completed and sent in and submitted to you so that you're able to get that taken care of by May 24th. We're asking that data managers will complete their data cleanup just a couple of days after that data is submitted. So it's important that you're in communication right now with your teachers, and that's going to involve cleaning up the data as it relates to the student files, any teacher changes or information that needs to be updated, ensuring that you've got the enrollments correct and all of that information is in place, making sure that you initiate and or approve transfer requests so that you have the students attached to your location that should be attached, or that you allow another data manager to attach those students to their location by approving a transfer a request that might have been sent to you. And then you should be able to download all desired reports from the system in order to create your archive by June 16th. We're asking that you do that by June 16th so that you're able to have that information and access that at a later time. We talked about the data cleanup. This is what's involved in that data cleanup. It's accessing the system so that you can do the following things, right? Access the following reports. Make sure that you complete all of those transfers, either initiate a request if there are students that are part of your location that were not initially, make sure that you do that, or approve those requests that have come to you as a data manager. This is going to be very important as we look at, kind of point of authority and ensuring that those students that should be attached to your location are attached. Ensuring that the student scores and data are collected and submitted by the teacher so that they can be added and part of the reporting that needs to take place. Making sure that your teacher status is updated. This is really critical. Certainly, things change throughout the year. Teacher names may change, email addresses, those kinds of things. We just want to make sure that teachers that are assigned to students in the system, and also that teachers have the correct information assigned to them, attached to them, so that they too can submit the data to you correctly. Ensure that the enrollments are updated, making sure those student and teacher linkages are intact and correct, and that you're using the correct data token, which is their spring 2023-ELA. And finally, ensuring that the point of authority regarding the fact that in the ELA that you can kind of share students You want to make sure that you capture the point of authority or for your location if you are in a situation where students are shared, or if there are services that are provided to students, those teachers that are providing those services submit their information so that the teacher that is assigned to that student for reporting purposes is attached appropriately. And so we want to make sure that the point of authority finalized before the final reports are submitted. These are the areas that as a data manager, you're going to be using with the K-Ready system. Certainly the data collections we've talked about with the proper collection token. We also want to make sure, again, as you go down this list, that your users, those are the teachers that are in the system, that information is correct. Likewise, that the students that are attached to those teachers and with regards to the enrollments should be attached to them. You'll be utilizing the bulk loader as you go in and update information, download information, and then certainly finally reports. Again, for this closed down period, there's some other sections of the K-Ready system that we'll talk about at another time, specifically the data displays and archives. But for right now, we want to make sure that these areas that are highlighted here in red, that you are aware that those are the areas that you're going to be using for this closed down period. Want to make sure that you are aware there are really two different kinds of transfers. The first is internal, and that is what it says. I mean, it involves students that are transferring within your district, within your location, but from one building to another building within the same district, within the same location. So those transfers happen pretty much automatically in the system. That's, it's going to be with the existing students. It's not new students coming into the district. You just simply upload that student ID and the transfer should occur between those two buildings seamlessly. There shouldn't be an issue of approving necessarily a transfer request. If it's an external transfer, meaning that a student's coming from one district to another, that's where you're really going to have to be mindful of those requests that come in and make sure that those are approved in order to allow that those student scores to be transferred over to the new location, the new district, and that student to be assigned to a new teacher. And so, and with that, we want to make sure that you are addressing the fact that you have to monitor those transfer requests as they come in. That's done in the K-Ready system. And here you see kind of the screen for that. If you were to click on transfers, you would see these different status areas. So you'll see requests from others. Really want you taking a look at that, especially at this period. If there are requests and you can verify that those requests are correct, we're encouraging you to go in even today and approve those requests so that those data can be transferred appropriately and those students can be assigned appropriately. So I want you to make sure you're going in, approving those requests, and then clicking on your requests. So if you have students that have come into your location and you're needing a data manager to approve that, make sure that you're checking that to see if there are any lingering requests out there, and go in and reach out to the data manager to see if they can kind of move that along for you so that, again, you can have that student assigned and attached appropriately. And then the last tab, there's the transfer history, kind of shows you the back and forth that has occurred as it relates to transfers in your system. A few areas specific to what you need to do as a data manager to prepare for the close down. The first being, making sure that you have those scores. Again, communicate with those teachers to make sure that those scores come in and they're completed. If there are any missing scores, you're following up with the teachers to make sure that you get those data so that can be collected and entered into the system appropriately. Making sure that you go through your system to capture any kind of teacher status changes that need to take place. Make sure that those teachers that are active, that their information is updated and correct. And if there are teachers that are no longer part of your system, making sure they're inactive and that the enrollments are reassigned appropriately. As you see here in the next section here, making sure that the students and teachers are linked properly. So as a data manager, right now is the time that you need to go into your system, download those reports to make sure that those things are correct. And then here with the data collection token, making sure that you're using the right token. We need to make sure that those enrollments are correct. And then finally here, as we talk about the point of authority, making sure that that is assigned appropriately to the correct location, especially in situations where there are services that are provided to students by multiple teachers or instructors, making sure that the point of authority is assigned appropriately.
So what you see here is the 3 different ELA reports that you can generate in the K-Ready system. So the first one there is the data downloads, and this is going to show you what data has been uploaded into the K-Ready system. Now this is helpful so you can see the point of authority and the status of a student. So in addition, this is also super helpful for your transfer students. So this is going to ensure you can see if you have the point of authority for those students. If you don't have the point of authority, they will not show on your reports. Second one you see is the ELA SKB ratings report. So this will show all students in your program with all 72 SKBs listed in the first row, and then any ratings that have been entered for each of those students for each SKB. Now this report is going to show, like I said, the entire ELA. So depending on your use of the tool, you may see data entered for all of those SKBs or just the required SKBs that are associated with those 10 learning progressions that are required for reporting. The last one you see is going to be available after the window. The data downloads and the ELA SKB ratings report, both of those can be pulled at any time. But this last one is going to be pulled after the window. This is what you will generate to submit to EMIS or EAS. And this report is going to show you the learning progression ratings for the required 10. These ratings are based on what has been entered for the SKBs within that learning progression. Again, it is available after the window, and we suggest pulling this May 25th. The window closes on May 22nd. The data cleanup window ends on May 24th. So May 25th, you're going to have all clean, accurate data. If any scores are missing when you're pulling your SKB ratings report, we do encourage you to communicate with the teacher and see specifically that student and provide any support that you can to ensure that data is entered in a system before the close of the window on May 22nd. So as you're in on the left-hand navigation, you want to select your reports. Select your drop-down arrow. First one we're going to do is the first one in line, and that's that data downloads. And now that's a system report, so you want to go all the way down to the bottom. Now the download type, there are 3: students, teachers, and enrollments. For this example, I want to show you enrollments. Select your data collection. Now region is if this is more for data managers who have multiple districts. For district, if you were to select the next one down, district, this is if you have multiple locations and you just want to look at the district as a whole. And again, the location is going to narrow it down if you just want to look at one specific building. I'm just going to choose the district for this example here. So ELA test district, select request district data download. You're going to see at the bottom, your report has been successfully requested. So you just want to close that out. Now it is in processing status currently. You want to give it at least a minute when you pull those and generate that report to pull that up. You can also hit refresh at the top after a minute, I would suggest, if it doesn't pull up. You want to give it time. What you're going to see is all columns A through H is basically all that student data. Then I through K is the teacher. So what you want to look at are these 3 columns, these last 3. For one, if they have the correct spring token attached. The other ones are the active column and the point of authority column. So you can already see that I have a no listed on 2 of these. And what that means is when a student is no in the active column, then a teacher is not attached. A student is only active as long as a teacher is attached to them. So at this time, both Jacob and Tinkerbell, both have no teachers attached. Now, the other column is the point of authority. Now, there is one here, Robin Masters, that I do not have the point of authority for this student yet. So what I'm going to do as the data manager is I'm going to re-trigger a transfer request to make sure that it was received by that district. To do that, just do a quick student file upload just with that student's information. That triggers the transfer request again to the previous organization or district. Ideally, you want your active column to be yes, and you want your point of authority to be yes. The next report is going to be the SKB ratings report, and that will be the second one down. We're going to select the data collection, and we are going to select that as spring. Now, what you see here is the filter by point of authority. This is by default. This is automatically checked. When it is checked, you will only see students who their point of authority is with your district pull on this report. If you uncheck the filter by point of authority, you will see students that have been loaded by your data manager, by you, by others, but maybe you don't have the point of, or that you don't have the point of authority for yet. So for instance, this is more for organizations who share students. So if you share a student with two different, or you and another one, this is the perfect example. You would then uncheck that box, and then those students, if you don't have the point of authority for, but you loaded them, they will show up. We're going to keep that checked there. We're going to check our start date is always the first day of the opening of the window. So that is going to be February 15th. Your end date, if you're pulling this before the close of the window, just choose the end date as today. After the window, you want to choose the actual end of when the window basically closes, when the data manager cleanup closes. So for that would be May 25th. But for this, we're just going to do today. And again, the location is if you want to narrow it down and you have multiple locations that you want to pick one. District is if you want to look at all of your buildings, and region is if you want to look at all of your districts that you handle. We're just going to do district and generate report. And again, you'll see that successfully requested down on the bottom. So when that report pulls, this is what you will see. You're going to see your student information and your teacher, and that's going to go all the way to column S. And like I said earlier, this is going to be all 72 learning progressions. So your scores entered are going to go from column T all the way 72, and that's going to be down to CM. So you want to make sure which learning progressions, if you are doing the 10 learning progression, it'll be 24 of the SKBs you'll be looking for. I can already tell that there are some of the students that have no scores entered. At this point, as a data manager, you want to reach out to your teachers and have them enter the scores for students that are missing scores. Maybe they're missing all of them, or maybe like Lindsay here, she's got a couple that are missing. We want to go back out and, hey, make sure you enter these scores. You've got until May 22nd to enter those scores. Lastly is going to be the ELA Learning Progression Report. And now it's the very top report, and it does say for EMIS. So this is what you use to submit your scores to EMIS or EAS. Select your data collection. And as you can see, you only see the fall. The spring will not be available until after the window and after the data cleanup. So come May 25th, you will then be able to see the spring located here. You can select the filter by point of authority, or you can keep that unchecked, whichever you prefer, and your data or your district or your region. Now, I did go ahead and pull one from the fall. This is what you will see, and this will have your students listed and the 10 learning progressions. I can already see I'm going to have missing scores here. This is after the window closed. That is another thing that we'll be talking about, the missing scores here shortly. Currently, the reporting requirements for ODE and non-public JFS licensed programs are for ECE funded children and children receiving PSE services. Now, to meet the requirement, only 10 learning progressions are needed to successfully report. EMIS and EAS are the two main data warehouse systems that are used to collect and store the ELA data. Programs serving children by the Early Childhood Education, ECE, or the Preschool Special Education, PSE, are required to complete the ELA and report scores for the fall and the spring administration windows. All programs may use the ELA, but only ODE license and non-public and ODJFS licensed programs are required to report on the ELA. These programs must report the 10 required learning progressions on the ECE funded children and the children receiving the PSE services, either to EMIS or to EAS. So there is an ELA reporting requirement document that I believe we can post in the chat too for you, is good for programs to learn where they're reporting to if they don't know already. The EMIS and EAS reporting. EMIS reporting dates are found on the 2022-2023 EMIS calendar, and there's a hyperlink there, and that is also in the notes as well that you'll see. Now, the fall assessment has already closed. However, the spring assessment data collection now is going to be open through August 25th. So what you can do, let's say you pull the report on the 25th before the end, before the archive, and maybe you don't report until you come back to school. But make sure you pull that before the archive, or you're not going to be able to report for the spring assessment window. But do note, EMIS reporting dates can change. So please keep update and keep looking at that EMIS calendar. Now for EAS reporting dates and directions, those are going to be found on the FY23 grantee manual. And again, that's also a hyperlink that you see. And we can also post in the chat as well as it is in the notes. The reporting for the fall is already closed, but the spring, the assessment data needs to be entered by June 15th. So when you pull the report on May 25th for EAS, you might as well go ahead and put that and report that. That will be closing June 15, 2023.
That SKB report, that's the skills, knowledges, and behavior report. You can generate that to see, you know, are there scores in for the children? Are there any blanks where you should have a score? That's really going to be helpful, because at the end of the window, when you generate your learning progression score, you don't want to have any blanks. You might have N's, as in not yet evident. So when you're looking at your scores, getting ready to report them into EMIS or EAS, take a look at all of your data so that you're prepared for any instances of N's. Okay, because the early learning assessment includes 9 different level descriptors. So you might see A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those are the scores that represent typical milestones of child's development. But there are options for the teacher if the teacher is unable to determine a score, or if the child has not yet reached the highest level indicator in the progression, the teacher can choose N, or they can also choose NE. So N stands for not scorable, and NE stands for not yet evident. And we do go over those scores with teachers during trainings. So if you do have questions about the use of those, you can always reach out to us at that ELA help@education.ohio.gov email address. But if a teacher enters an N for not scorable, an NE for not yet evident, or perhaps leaves a score blank because they weren't able to administer for whatever reason, then the learning progression is going to calculate an N at that learning progression level. And so then when you go to submit your assessment data to EMIS or EAS, you cannot enter a score of an N. You have to actually list a reason code. And the reason code is found in the EMIS manual. If you are reporting into EMIS, you'll find the reason codes toward the end of the manual under the score not reported section. If you submit your scores through EAS, you'll want to look at the guidance document on entering scores in EAS to see the allowable reason codes. When you pull your learning progression score report from K-Ready, you'll notice that there is no other information on that report that tells you why the child has an N. That's why it's helpful to have the SKB report, because if an N or an NE was entered for any of those SKBs, that's the reason why the learning progression has an N. But then you'll need a reason code when you put that data into EMIS or EAS. So you want to have some sort of internal communication process with your teachers to make sure that they're accurately reporting N or NE, if that's what they're choosing for the score. Okay, and then you can only enter one reason code in any of the instances where the learning progression is a score of N. Okay, so you just want to pick one reason code. I think that covers it for this slide. And so then just a couple of reminders about this, that in the event, if a teacher does not have necessary evidence to determine a rating for one or more SKBs before the assessment window closes, you might have a teacher that leaves an SKB blank. But if the teacher has evidence that either the child is not yet evident, so they're not yet at the earliest level that's available in the learning progression, or they've determined that it's not scorable, then the teacher would enter that. Then when the data manager goes to report into EMIS or EAS, you have to enter the reason code. EMIS uses those stars. So the EMIS coordinator would actually enter star, star, star for any of those instances, and then enter a score not reported reason code. So if you do have questions about that, that's why we have that email address. You can reach out to us if you have questions related to that, and we'll be able to help you. There are a lot of valid options, and that's why you want to have that communication with your teachers to know, okay, why is the learning progression rating an N? So you'll look at the valid options. There is a reason, F as in Frank. That is a reason code that would only be used if you've determined that no other reason code is appropriate.
Just to kind of tie things up here, we'll talk just a little bit about the timeline. As we've shared, the timeline has been adjusted, it has been updated. These are the dates. Just really want to call your attention to the fact that May 22nd, the data collection closes. May 24th, the data cleanup ends. And then the last day to generate reports for this school year will be June 16th. As we've always encouraged you as data managers, you should be going into the system, downloading those reports, getting that information, getting those data, taking a look at those reports, and reaching out to teachers to make sure that the information is as complete as possible before submission. And also, in order to generate your archives, very, very important that you go into the system and download these reports so that you have access to them after the archive is created. Basically, that's kind of a snapshot of the year. So it's important that you do all that you can do to download those reports now and get that information. As you know, the Ohio Department of Education's website section on early learning is a great place for you to get information regarding the assessment. There you will find the guidance on policy and procedure, as well as other information that can assist you as an assessment data manager as you kind of go through this process. So we're encouraging you to go there, sign up for the newsletter that's there so that you can receive the Gov delivery. If you're not receiving those, certainly to sign up for that Gov delivery newsletter that comes out so that you are up to date. And then, of course, we have the Ohio K-12 Help Desk site, specifically the K-Ready section there. Here, this is where you go for technical support and information about the system. So we want you to make sure that you are visiting the site. There are how-to videos, support resources. There's a wealth of information on this site that we've provided for you. If you do not have what you need, if there's a question or an issue or challenge, you can reach out to us. You can do so. We're encouraging you to do that by coming to the site and opening up a help desk ticket and filling out the information there, because the more information you give us on the front side, the easier it is for us to get an answer for you. But if you want to, you can also reach out to us by phone. You see the number there, 844-K-12 Ohio or 844-512-6446. you can reach us by phone that way, and we have a support team available to respond to your questions in that way.
So let's go first with updating a student. You can update a student manually, such as maybe you need to update the disability code, or maybe you need to change anything lower here, such as the English language learner or low socioeconomic status, whatever the case may be. You can just go ahead and go to your student, open that student up, and select on any of these and hit save. Same thing with the disability code. You can change that to anything if it changed, or maybe you didn't put it in at the beginning anyway, so you want to add that in. To check and see if they are attached to a certain teacher. So currently this student was attached back in August. Maybe you need to add a teacher or change the teacher. You can always select assign a teacher and excuse me, find that teacher listed as one of your teachers and click assign. And you can see that it's currently, you can see everything kind of went. All right, we know Lindsay's assigned now. Carissa's no longer the teacher. I'm just going to remove them. But I want to check one more thing. I want to make sure that they have that spring data collection token attached to them. So as you can see, you really can't see it here, but if you select right underneath the location, the word location is actually like this little hidden hyperlink. What it does is open that student up further. Now you see you're up here at the organizations, you're a little bit deeper, but you also see now that you have the data collection assignment tab. And what you can see at this time, there's nothing attached. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select assign data collection, or they're what? Well, those were the data collection. I'm sorry. These ones have passed. So they are currently assigned for the spring. So you're good. When a teacher says they cannot see a student, and you clearly see that the student is attached to a teacher here, it's due to that data collection assignment. So by doing that manually, again, you want to select location underneath. It's going to be like this little, you can see it kind of pops up down there at the bottom of your left hand side of the screen. Select the data collection assignment and select that assign data collection. So if the teacher's not seeing them, and let's say there's nothing there, you can then hit assign and finished, then double check with your teacher that they can see the student. To update a user, any of your teachers, let's say, has a name change, or maybe email address changed or anything like that. So what you'll want to do is find that teacher's name, and we are going to pick sample teacher 5 here. So let's say the name changed and there's no longer 5 listed as a last name. I'm just moving things around here. And you update the email address. So you do that manually. Hit save. Make sure it says save down there. And now you know that's updated. So when you go to pull your bulk loader, you'll want to make sure that it has the correct information, because you can't update via bulk loader first, because what happens is you create another user. You have to update it manually first and then use the bulk loader to upload the teacher for your new session. Pulling your archives. Okay, so your archives, every report you generate now will be archived. If you don't pull it, it won't be archived. So make sure that if you aren't sure if you pulled the fall ELA spring or a fall report, learning progression, pull it now. If you double checking any of your reports there, make sure anything you pull is going to be archived. And then come next year, you can always go back to your archives and you click on that year. So this would be moved for or listed as for next year. Let me learn how to talk. Next year, you will see 2023, 2022 school year. So transfers, you're going to see your requests from others. You're going to see any of your pending requests. So these are all the ones. Now, double check your dates because it's going to have all the dates listed. So for instance, I have mine, if we change your date to go oldest to newest, you can change that as well. If you want to check by student name, again, you can do it that way. You can see where the origin district versus the destination. And then you will see your transfer history, whether there was accepted or not. And you will have those listed here as well. So as soon as you do one, if you're not sure, if you have the point of authority, again, pull that data downloads report and pull enrollments to see. If you don't have the point of authority, upload a student file through your bulk loader with that student information. It's going to trigger another transfer request. Once that is done and comes back complete, you're going to see that student listed here as your request. So you want to keep an eye on that. If you'll see the destination or where it came from, where the student came from. So you'll be able to, if you wanted to reach out to that district, reach out and find out, look for the data manager and make sure they see that. Hey, I just triggered a transfer request. Can you accept that?